Well, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel, and thank you for tuning in to another video. Today's video is off-season primer number 8. Yes, number 8. We are almost complete our off-season primer series. 7 down, 2 more to go, and after today's show, 1 more to go. We've made it almost, I keep saying actually, we've made it through the Western Division with leaving out the representative of the West Division the last 5 years, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Just due to some schedule complications with the guest who will be joining us here shortly, as you can see in the title, I'm sure. Um, just unfortunately, we couldn't make it work last week, so we had to move it to a later date. So, hence why it's coming at you in the middle of the Eastern Division as well. And that brings me to this point of Merry Christmas to all. By the time you guys are watching this, it is after Christmas time. As I said on the last one, these last 2 episodes will be coming out probably after Boxing Day, maybe like the 27th, a few days there before New Year's, and then we'll take a break going into the new year and kind of refresh a little bit, if you will, and before free agency really gets underway there in early February, and then we'll hit the ground running from there in the off season, and there'll be plenty to talk about, and podcast season will be in full swing. So off season primer number 8 is today's video. If you guys have enjoyed the off season primer series so far, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I would encourage you, if you are today's video Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, to not only check out our Bombers offseason primer video, but some other teams around the CFL. I think we've had some great guests on so far. Andrew Hoskins covering Edmonton Elks, Mark Steven, Hall of Famer, Coach Phil, Darrin Bauming. Just actually, I guess it's not technically a surprise with it in the title already, but guest today, Darrin Bauming, does a fantastic job. One Cliffy Pine, Montreal, Shane Ryan, Ottawa Redblacks. Has been a lot of fun talking to the various teams, and we try to, over here at Canadian Football Fanatics, try to stay on top of all 9 teams across the CFL, but it gets a little bit tough sometimes, especially when you're in the thick of the CFL season. U Sports is taking over, CJFL as well. So to get a perspective from these guys that are locked in all year long from their teams is much better. Especially today, I'm really excited to talk to Darrin and get his perspective on the Bombers. 5 straight Grey Cups, have lost 3 of them, and I would imagine that fan base is pretty frustrated. But if you look over, to the West Coast and BC, I think that this fan base is quite frustrated. They haven't been able to get over that hump yet. So, Winnipeg is definitely in a good place, but is it the end or not? We will soon see. So, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. You guys can find us on social media at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, as well as on Twitter or X at _CF Fanatics. So, Darrin Bauming will be joining us momentarily. One host of or I guess creator of Bonfire Sports Winnipeg, covers the Winnipeg Blue Bombers fantastically, Winnipeg Jets, Winnipeg Sea Bears, CEBL, is the play-by-play announcer for the Winnipeg Rifles, CJFL. So got my Raiders CJFL gear on here tonight because Darrin is also a CJFL supporter. So love that and excited to get into it. There's a lot of people excited, probably is probably actually a good way to put it, especially I know contributor here, friend of the show, co-host of the show, Blake Milton, was very quick to throw dirt on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers grave. 0-4 start, I think it was 2-4, something like that, through 6 weeks, and then they turn it around. They're able to win the Western Division after nobody foreseen that, and get to the Grey Cup, and we're within 7 or 8 minutes away from ultimately winning the Grey Cup. So we will get into it with Darrin Bauming. So let's go over to Darrin Bauming and talk about the offseason head for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We're back with our offseason primer guest number 8 here on the channel. Darrin Bauming, host of the Bonfire Sports Winnipeg, contributor to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Winnipeg Jets, Winnipeg Sea Bears, you name it, and play-by-play announcer for the Winnipeg Rifles as well in the CJFL. Darrin, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Great to be with you, man. Number 8. That's
Number
pretty impressive. You're going around the league well.
number 8. We are flying through it already. So, Darrin, I know you only have a little bit of time, so let's get into it right away. There was, I think, a lot of perspective and probably a little bit more of a perspective within the fan base from an outside perspective. I think there's been a lot of looking at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as the model franchise, especially in the Western Division, getting to the Grey Cup the last 5 years, but probably a lot of disappointment this year. Now that you've had an opportunity to, take a deep breath, really, observe what the Bombers did this past season. Everyone through 6 or 7 weeks there was really starting to throw dirt on their grave to kind of write them off. I'm sure you're well aware of that. Now that, like I said, we've had a chance to kind of take a step back from the season, a month out from the Grey Cup. What are just your overall quick thoughts from this past year?
Yeah, it was a pretty nuts year, pretty crazy year for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We know they got to a fifth straight Grey Cup and ended in a loss for a third consecutive season. We know how it ended, but how it started, I think, is really tells the tale of their season. And starting 0-4 when all of the big names were back, the coaching staff remained intact. Yeah, they made some changes. Jordan Younger going to defensive coordinator and Mike Miller retiring as a player and taking over special teams coordinator duties. But expectations were very high for the Bombers, right? Brady Oliveira, a couple changes on the offensive line, but Zach Collaros and Dalton Schoen and Kenny Lawler and Nick Dembski, all those guys back on offense, so many others as well. And defensively, having all the principles, if you will, back on that side of the football. Expectations were high. An 0-4 start. It started with, an absolute beatdown at the hands of the Montreal Alouettes in a Grey Cup rematch week 1, and then winning a couple games by the skin of their teeth, and then losing a couple, and suddenly they're 2-6. And this was the absolute linchpin moment of their season. At 2-6, they had a short week. They went out your way, Cole, and welcomed the BC Lions. They had a back-to-back against the BC Lions, who were first place in the West. Vernon Adams Jr. was lighting it up and was probably the early MOP frontrunner. And the Lions came to town and they lost 25-0. Winnipeg took that victory and turned it into 9 straight wins and won 10 of their final 11 or 12 games. It was just an incredible run. But, um, you know, as low as the Blue Bombers were, getting to that Grey Cup and being favored to win, and then obviously the injury to Chad Kelly and Nick Arbuckle off the scrap heap, leading a team into the Grey Cup. Everybody was expecting Winnipeg to win, myself included. No doubts about it, really. And to see them lose the way they did, like I was talking to a current Blue Bombers player, one of the leaders in the locker room last night at a charity event, and he said to me, with where we were and where we finished, it's almost that much more heartbreaking. It probably would have been an easier pill to swallow to be like, yeah, we had a down year and we didn't make the playoffs, because that's what everybody expected. Winnipeg, at 2-6 in particular, um, to finish the season, maybe outside of the playoffs. So an emotionally wear year, like it weighed heavy on them all season long. Lots of adversity, lots of emotions, and then losing that ultimate emotional hit right at the end in the Grey Cup. What was a tough one. I mean, I'm sure this will lead into your next question, but 2025, Winnipeg hosts the Grey Cup. They are going to pull out all the stops to be in that game and try to come away champions on home turf.
Yeah, DB, kind of a similar question moving forward from the Grey Cup. Obviously, both you and I were lucky enough to be at the Grey Cup this year, and to remind folks a little bit, to go back into that, maybe 6 or 7 minutes into the fourth quarter, it was a 17-6 ball game, 17-13, anybody's game late into that fourth quarter, and obviously as football does, kind of plays itself out, it tends to come down to 4 or 5 plays and going the wrong way. Is there any sort of silver lining now, DB, that we're a month out of it going forward, that you're kind of like positivity, and there's a light, I guess, down the road of like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are that close to kind of, I know it's kind of crazy to say breaking through, but once again, hosting that Grey Cup trophy.
Yeah, I think it would be tough for me to pose that to somebody, whether it's a coach or somebody in management or a player on the Blue Bombers, to say, did this adversity, did this disappointment, will that help fuel you? Because this was a third straight Grey Cup loss, right? So I think the first one they lost in 2022 to the Toronto Argonauts was like, that shouldn't have happened. We'll show them next year. And then going into the game in Hamilton and losing to a 8-point underdog, 9-point underdog in the Montreal Alouettes on the final drive of the game. Uh, it was, well, here we go again. And again, that dip at the beginning of the season, getting to the game and them expecting to finish the job and win their third Grey Cup in 5 years, five straight appearances. For that to go wrong, I don't know if they would, if anybody would say there's a silver lining or a positive spin they can put on it. I'm very curious how the leadership of this team, and that's from Mike O'Shea all the way to all the players inside the locker room, and then some of the names maybe we in the media don't talk too much about. All of those guys, how are they going to respond next season, and are they going to keep their head, keep their chin high? Um, every new season's a new season, but I really wonder, after 3 straight years of disappointment, and being in that game 5 times and thinking about how dynastic that group could be considered. They're not right now. You win the first two and then you lose three. That's not a dynasty. How are they going to respond in 25? That's what I'm really curious to see.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, Bonfire Sports, ton of great content over there, and I enjoyed the off-season kind of primer that you guys put out. Chris is quite the entertainment. I will tell you that much for sure, and Schnitzy, of course, and I think I probably have an idea of maybe where you're going to go with this, DB, going forward here. But as I bring up the kind of list of pending free agents here for the Bombers, they've obviously already kind of started to make a dent in that list with bringing back, Tony Jones, who I thought was a very terrific
Yeah.
player for you guys at linebacker there. Stanley Bryant, obviously, Sergio Castillo, kicker. But if you could, DB, just for our viewers over here, is there any maybe top three priority free agents that you think must be brought back for the Bombers?
Yeah, Tyrell Ford and the type of season he had, a lot of people think he is a must sign. And I understand that. I would probably, come out of the gate saying someone like Tyrell Ford, being a Canadian, being, a CFL interception leader in his first full season as a starter. But I think Winnipeg often starts 9 Canadians. So is he a must sign? I think he is a definitely they want to sign and will try to sign. I'm not going to call him a must sign. For me, number one must sign for the Blue Bombers above pretty much everybody else, um, is Dalton Schoen. He got injured last season, and the offense did not look the same. Zach Collaros did not look the same without that safety valve, safety blanket, go-to guy, however you want to describe it. Dalton Schoen, although just a few years in the league, I think he has shown that he is that important. He is that critical to the chemical mixture that is success on offense for the Blue Bombers. We also don't know who the offensive coordinator is for Winnipeg, with Buck Pierce taking the job to lead the BC Lions. So, is it Jarius Jackson? Is it somebody internal? I think almost, you could say a new offensive coordinator could be a must sign for Winnipeg, for them to feel a little bit more stable. Um, on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Willie Jefferson, still a free agent. That's a must sign guy for me. You saw how much he was an absolute wrecking crew. And that's a cliche. People say it all the time, but a crew. He did what,
He was the best player on the field at the Grey Cup.
no question. No
No
question. I think
question.
he should have been Grey Cup MVP. If not him, I think it should have been Winton McManus. All due respect to Nick Arbuckle, but I really do feel it was Winton McManus's award that game. But Willie Jefferson was a crew of dudes. He played like three guys out there and took over the game in a lot of respects. He's a must sign. I'll go with Dalton Schoen, and I'll go with Willie Jefferson as must sign guys for the Blue Bombers.
About the free agency coming up here, how do you think Kyle Walters will continue to kind of balance, a lot of veterans on this team of there's a saying of the 1 year too early rather than 1 year too late, right? And obviously,
Right.
there's guys like Big Hill, some guys on the defensive line, and Stanley already being brought back is obviously a sign of kind of some of those guys. And obviously, as you know, in free agency, just the business of football, you're not going to be able to money wise bring everybody back whether you like to or not.
Yeah.
How do you think Kyle will kind of balance that aspect, I guess, of free agency?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You definitely want to, not wait too long to maybe have that contingency plan in place and, be ready for some of your veteran players to move on. I think Willie Jefferson, as I mentioned, I think he's still got a ton of gas in the tank. Adam Bighill is kind of that, powder keg of debate here in Winnipeg. If he'll be back next season. If there's anybody in the league that can will himself at that age back from a serious injury, it's Adam Bighill. I would never doubt him for a second, just for how he's wired between the ears. But the reality is, he suffered that injury late in the season, and whatever ligament it is, that's a long-term injury. So Winnipeg's going to have linebackers in place. I think that's why Tony Jones was like the first name off their list. They need Tony Jones. Kyrie Wilson is a pending free agent. I think they're going to be very aggressive, to bring new guys into training camp and try to find some guys. Because for the majority of the season, as Adam Bighill maybe works his way back to health, that is if he signs again, they're going to need linebackers. They're going to need guys to not just be there, but to start and to play. So I really do think Adam Bighill kind of leads that conversation. But you always got to find a DB. I remember years ago, Cole, CFL GM telling me it's a reality in Canadian football. You have to find a rookie defensive back to start on your team every single year. You can't pay a big name free agent or a handful of them and your own guys, five, six of them back there, playing the dime, playing safety, playing both halfback and corner spots. You got to find young, inexpensive talent there. So, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how, the next couple months go and, look ahead to that Valentine's Day, time of year. I think it's February 11th this year when CFL free agency opens. And now that Vernon Adams Jr. has a new place, with the Calgary Stampeders and, new coaching staff in Edmonton and the big trade between, Edmonton and Montreal with Fajardo and McLeod Bethel Thompson and all those changes. But those quarterback dominoes, lots of free agent quarterbacks this year. The look and feel, the landscape of the CFL could be very different in 25.
Yeah, the dominoes are starting to fall. One last question for you here, Darren, before you get out of here.
Of course.
Um, Kind of a, I guess, directional question for you moving forward here for the Bombers. As I mentioned, as you're well aware, five straight Grey Cups, losing three straight. The losses of Ted Kavaya and obviously Buck Pierce coming out here to take over, head coaching duties for BC. This team obviously is goal number one is probably to try to, you know, there's the term obviously getting thrown around of rebuild and rebuild. I think the term that I think GMs would probably like to use is reload, right? Not wanting to lose too much and reload on the fly. Obviously, the Bombers are playing in that home Grey Cup. How are you kind of feeling here? Obviously, as we're recording, it's before Christmas and free agency is going to happen and the draft and new players coming into the CFL. The Bombers will look quite different come June. And it's very early for this question, but how do you just kind of as a directional moving forward, do you see the Bombers, I guess, going forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's a reality in football, right? The only constant in pro football is change, and that can be coaching staff and your roster, and your young guys, and your veteran players, and all of that, and how much they contribute and where they contribute. That changes so much, especially in the CFL. Like you mentioned it earlier, the 1 year contracts and free agency, and especially this year with quarterbacks moving because those guys command such a large chunk of team salary caps. For Winnipeg, I think solidifying that coaching staff is going to be incredibly important. I think when you have a Zach Collaros, I know it was a down year for him, but changes on that O line, I think, are a little bit more stabilized right now. And he played better as the season went on. Having Brady and if they can get Dalton Schoen under contract, I think that'll be very important. I think overall, when you have a Zach Collaros and veterans like Stanley Bryant, kind of being your key cogs on offense, they'll be okay. And defensively, I mean, the work Jordan Younger did this year as a rookie defensive coordinator, was exemplary. He was outstanding. For me, he was the most outstanding coach the other MOC, I guess you would be, in the CFL this year. So, if they can get Willie Jefferson under contract, Evan Holm and Dietrich Nichols, probably some guys I should have mentioned in those must-sign free agent categories. I think they're going to be okay. Anytime you host a Grey Cup, and I know President and CEO of the Blue Bombers, Wade Miller, is going to be no different than Amar Doman and the BC Lions were, this past season. You pull out all the stops, you do everything you can to ensure that your team is in the best position to win and win now. I think it's more of a challenge this year than maybe it has been in previous years, but it's almost like salary cap be damned. They are going to pay the penalty if it costs them a pick, costs them, a couple first round picks and some cash. I think they're going to pay that $2 to one. That if they do go over the salary cap this year, they want to make sure that they're going to be in that game here in Winnipeg in late November and try to win that, what is it, 12th, 13th championship for this franchise. And, you win 3 in 6. I think that, that dynasty talk will start again.
One quick last one, DB, just for us out here out west. What are we getting in Buck Pierce as the new head coach for the BC Lions?
Look, I'll just speak plainly. I love Buck Pierce as a guy, as a person, as somebody to deal with professionally, and as a football mind. He is a heart and soul, genuine dude. He's from Northern California, but married a Winnipeg girl. And I'll be honest, if you met him on the street and you didn't know he was a football coach, you'd think he was born and bred in the prairies, right? Just a real dude, a real genuine dude. I don't think he could have found a better situation for himself. An owner that wants to win and win now in Amar Doman, close to home for Buck, with his family being from Northern California and in Northern California. His wife, Lori, who's a lovely woman. She's had her story of multiple battles with cancer well told in the media here in Winnipeg. She is healthy and has been for a long time. Their kids are young enough. I think moving is not too much of a strain on the family. And then for Buck, I think he's just set up to succeed in BC. I think the cherry on top of it all is to be able to work with Nathan Rourke. And I was so impressed, not surprised, but so impressed with the way Buck Pierce talked about Nathan Rourke in his introductory press conference, saying he wants a partnership with Nathan Rourke. And that's how Buck Pierce is. He is not going to be a dictator type head coach. He is going to work with his players and ensure that his success is, fueled through them and vice versa. So I would look out for Nathan Rourke. I think he's going to be in that MOP conversation. People are going to think, a few years down the road, they're going to look at Buck Pierce, they're going to look at Nathan Rourke, and they're going to say, 2024 is going to be a blink. They're not even going to realize or remember, maybe a bit of a dip in his level of play after, being in the NFL for 2+ years.
Yes, I saw you guys talking about best quarterback in the CFL right now. I saw you mention Nathan Rourke. So, DB, you know how
Yes,
much I
he is.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on here, especially during the holiday season. One last, where can the people find your work, not only on your Twitter personally, but Bonfire Sports as well?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Cole. Twitter or X at Darrin Bauming, but you can find links to everything bonfiresports.ca, and we're at Bonfire WPG on all the social media channels. But bonfiresports.ca, you'll find our YouTube and links to podcasts and all the social channels. But I appreciate that a lot. And hey, Cole, you're a guy that lives and breathes football. I can tell the passion is real. I love talking to people like you, man. So you call me anytime. We'll do this again.
I appreciate you so much, DB, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and enjoy the New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too. Thanks so much.
Yes, we'll chat soon, DB. One Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports. Appreciate him so much. He's been so generous to all of us here at Canadian Football Fanatics. Not only Canadian Football Fanatics, dating back to our time at Coast to Coast Gridiron, and he might have even been some of the pioneer days of when we used to do the Twitter Spaces way back in the day. So just so appreciative of DB for always jumping on here, giving us some of his time. Bombers. I know that was a quick one, Darrin, unfortunately, just not unfortunately, Darrin enjoying the holiday season and some family time, so didn't want to take up too much of his time. But kind of to put a bow on things, I'll talk a little bit about the Bombers here from my perspective. I think if you are a listener of the platform, if you've been dating or been a fan dating back to start of last year, you know that I am quite. You might confuse me as maybe a Bombers fan or supporter. Um, I would say that I am not. I would say probably a more appropriate term is maybe like a realist or just I guess what would kind of be how I phrase this, just understanding, I guess, that they're kind of proven. They're similar to, the Patriots and Golden State and now in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs are going through a little bit of struggles similar to the Bombers. And the Chiefs are a little bit different. They're 11-1. But the Bombers throughout that stretch, I mentioned partner of mine, Blake Milton, was very quick, and he wasn't the only one. So I'm not trying to just jump on Blake here. But I said it all throughout the season on the weekly show. As long as they have Mike O'Shea, as long as they have Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira. Now, I will say Zach Collaros may have proved me wrong in this instance, and I am probably the least confident in him in the three that I mentioned. But as long as they have those three names, I think they're going to be able to figure it out, be confident, be competitive enough to be dangerous, where they have a proven track record of getting to the game, winning big games, and understanding what it takes to win the big games in the pivotalist time. So, me kind of understanding that, I will say as soon as I got on the bandwagon of piling dirt on there and starting to grab a shovel with Blake, they turned around, they go and beat BC, our team, of course, and turn it around, as DB said, and reel off 10 or 11 straight victories, whatever it was. As I was talking about, I was really curious to hear him say about being 1 year early rather than 1 year too late with some of these free agents. I liked the signing of Tony Jones. I think he is a up and coming linebacker. His arrow is only pointing upwards. Sergio Castillo is one of the most reliable kickers in the league. I think you're pretty comfortable with him if you're a Bombers fan. Stanley Bryant, I think, falls into the category of being 1 year early or 1 year too late on bringing him back. This is a guy that is a first-class Hall of Famer, one of the best offensive linemen to ever lace him up in the CFL. You might owe him that respect to bring him back on this 1 year deal. And if that is the case, so be it for legacy purposes. He wanted to retire a Winnipeg Blue or whatever it may be. You bring him back. Okay, I understand that. But from a Bombers fan perspective and wanting to get to that home Grey Cup, does that cost you that chance? Because, maybe Zach's blind side is less protected this year. It's injuries, maybe he can't stay on the field, and they're a revolving door at that position. And the most, I don't want to single any offensive lineman out because all five of them are most important. But the most important is the left tackle. The blind side of a quarterback could be the right tackle, of course, if it's a left-handed quarterback. I'm curious to see how this one will play out for Stanley Bryant. That is no taking anything away from his career. Like I said, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Can't take anything away from his career, but he falls in that category. Adam Bighill, another one. Um, you know, can't think of any other names on the top of my head right now that are free agents for them. Kyrie Wilson isn't kind of getting up there in age, but some of these guys they haven't having to make decisions on. Tyrell Ford. Tyrell Ford's an interesting one. I have some takes on Tyrell Ford. I believe Tyrell Ford will be wearing an Edmonton Elks jersey come next season. Now, obviously, that is probably the obvious answer, but I think within that obvious answer is the truth. I would think that he wants to go play with his brother. I think there's some higher priority free agents, as DB mentioned, over one Tyrell Ford. Tyrell Ford is a great player, led the league or I believe tied for the league in interceptions, or was one below. Had a fantastic season, came back from the NFL, really showed out. Does he outprice himself? And Willie Jefferson needs to be brought back. There's some other guys on that in that secondary that need to be brought back. Does Tyrell Ford kind of be the sacrificial lamb in free agency when maybe you give a guy like William Jefferson, who said, following the Grey Cup game, who, as DB said, and DB and I agreed, he was the best player on the field and deserved the most outstanding player in the Grey Cup. He tweets after following the game, the price just went up. I believe alluding to the fact of the price just went up for him in free agency. Now, obviously, that could be wrong, and we could be speculating as fans, as followers of the CFL. We will soon see. But signing a guy like Willie Jefferson to big money, does that sacrifice bringing back a guy like Terrell Ford? We will soon see. And I think Trey Ford being brought back to the organization, getting trust back between the two, organization and player, trading for Cody Fajardo maybe is giving him a little bit of bad thoughts or reminders to what happened to him with Taylor Cornelius, MBT, and stuff like that. Do they, kind of give a peace offering, of saying, you know what, let's bring your brother in. We're in need of maybe upgrading and getting better in the secondary, especially at the corner position. We'll bring him in as one of our free agents we want to bring in to Edmonton. I don't know. We will soon see. I go over to the offensive side of the ball, why I think Terrell Ford will be gone. Dalton Schoen, Kenny Lawler, both free agents. Both, if you're a Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan or supporter, need to be brought back. High priority free agents, and there's already some that are above or at the same level as them. As Darrin alluded to, I think Zach Collaros was a different player without Dalton Schoen, and that was pretty obvious that he was a different player. Does he help that much more? I don't know. That's a tough question. We won't soon see, unfortunately, folks. It is only December. Is it June yet, or is it May? I guess is more appropriate because we'll have training camp and preseason, the best time of year. But Dalton Schoen coming back, I think he's a must sign. And coming off a torn Achilles, torn ACL, one of the two. Does that scare some other franchises away? For me, as a Lions fan, no, it doesn't. I don't think he's coming out west personally. I think Justin McInnis is probably more likely to come back than us getting a guy like Dalton Schoen. Kenny Lawler proved down the stretch that he is still the best receiver in the CFL, if not minimum top three. At worst, he's a top three receiver in the CFL, Kenny Lawler. They got some business to take care of. Three guys that are very, very important. Some guys in the offensive line, Liam Dobson, guys in the interior defensive line, like I mentioned, their linebackers are starting to, they'll have to make a decision or two there. It'll be interesting to see what happens for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers going forward here. As I mentioned, Ted Kavaya, unfortunate DB wasn't able to get too much into, what he meant for the team as the team's assistant general manager for the past 10 or so years. A pivotal piece for that front office, and I would expect it's going to be a loss and gain for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But DB said it, and I'm not surprised, but he is right. I don't see how this team, as of now, kind of spins a silver lining on losing 3 straight Grey Cups. Obviously, getting to 5 is great, and it seems probably like a distant memory now, winning those first 2. But as a Bills fan, I can relate to. Now, fortunately for me, I was not born yet, but you've heard about the fatigue of the Bills losing 4 straight Grey Cups and how much it wore on them in that 4th season. It was a lot on the team and kind of fractured some of those relationships. Losing 3 Grey Cups, I think, is hard on this franchise and this team. And going forward, I'm very curious to see how they come out on the other side of it. As I said, I'm going to go back to, as long as they have Mike O'Shea, as long as they have Brady Oliveira, and as long as they have Zach Collaros, I believe they will be competitive, competent organization team. But I think there is some teams that are trending upwards, and the Western Division is not getting any easier. I don't think the Bombers will win the Western Division, but I do not count them out in getting to a Grey Cup once again for the 6th straight year, because once they get into the playoffs, anything can happen, and they know and are proven winners in that time of year, especially some of those core guys. They've done it in the biggest time, and they understand what it takes. And there's the biggest saying that goes around in the CFL, and I didn't agree with it at first. I still don't agree with most of it, but it is true to a certain point. And me and Shane talked about it on the Ottawa Red Blacks primer of, the saying of the season doesn't start till Labor Day. is true to a certain extent, but it is also false, because if you lose enough games, it doesn't matter the run you go on post Labor Day, because you're out of it. We've seen it with, i.e., the Edmonton Elks, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who had a hot back half of the stretch, looked fantastic, but they dug themselves too deep of a hole. Getting to Labor Day and being competitive, being still within the hunt, or being in the hunt, being in the race, yes, then the season starts at Labor Day. Now you can start to jockey your position to getting into the playoffs. I feel the same way with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Get to Labor Day, be in the hunt, be in the race. Anything can happen come playoff time. I think that's probably where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are. I think they take a step back. They don't fall out of the playoff scene, and it is a battle in the Western Division. So that'll do it, folks, for offseason primer number 8. 8 down, 1 to go. So, as I've been saying, we are recording this before Christmas, but this will be posted, uploaded to the YouTube channel afterwards. So I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year upcoming. Stay tuned in the following days for the Hamilton Tiger Cats offseason primer to be released before New Year's. And then, as I mentioned, we'll take a little bit of a break, maybe a week or two break into the new year. For those that aren't aware, it is my birthday in the new year, January 9th birthday. You don't have to send me anything. I am a large in men's. I wear a Buffalo Bills, BC Lions, Vancouver Canucks in fan gear. All jokes aside, though, it is my birthday in January, so I'll probably take a little bit of a breather from the channel till then, and then we'll get into podcast season, baby. And I am so excited for some guests that we have lined up. Nothing official yet, so I don't want to tease anything, but definitely get prepared for some BC Lions, some CGFL. We definitely have, I guess I can release a few, but head coach of the VI Raiders, Sean Arabsky, will be coming on the program to sit down, be a podcast episode guest, and we have some more in the chamber. So get ready for that come the middle of January. So until then, folks, like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what you guys think of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers moving forward and their chances of continuing to be the cream of the crop in the Western Division. And let us know how much you've been enjoying the offseason primer. If you guys have been following along through all the offseason primers, if you're just watching one, all good. Let us know where you guys are watching it from. And like I said, how much you guys are enjoying it. Most importantly, please subscribe to the channel and follow us on all social media platforms at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, at _CF Fanatics on Twitter or X. One last reminder, folks, when you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys will be notified every single time we go live or upload any sort of content here on the channel. Like I said, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will catch you guys on the next video.